Good afternoon. Thanks for joining for another live Q&A. So I just wanted to start with another quote like I have in the last few weeks. So this quote is, "The greater danger for most of us lies not in setting our aim too high and falling short, but in setting our aim too low and achieving our mark." So again, the greater danger for most of us lies not in setting our aim too high and falling short, but in setting our aim too low and achieving our mark. And that's from Michelangelo. And the reason that I picked this one, and I think it's relevant for strength training, is that particularly as older adults, anyone trying to come into strength training as something new often comes in and they've already sort of told themselves and have this belief that there's only a certain level they're going to be able to get to because they've started late, and they feel like they look at other people in the gym lifting sort of heavy weights, or what they consider to be heavy, and they think there's no way I'll ever do that, because you can't even imagine doing an exercise on its own because it's all new to you, let alone doing it with a big weight. So they've already convinced themselves that they're probably going to get to the point where they can do something with a 2 or 3 kilogram dumbbell, and they go in with the aim of achieving that, and often they get to that quite quickly. And whilst they're ready to progress and build from that, often people don't, and they stick to this safe routine because they've already pushed themselves out of the comfort zone once, and it worked despite the nerves of maybe causing injury or something along those lines. So they don't want to push out again in case they push their luck and then cause an injury. So they stay with this safe routine which they work on, and they can continue at that level even though they're ready to do more. And to a certain level that's great, because moving and doing something is better than doing nothing. But if one of the things that got them into trying to do something was to develop strength and feel stronger, if they're only ever doing stuff with 2 or 3 kilograms when they're capable of doing stuff with 10 or 20 or 30 kilograms, you're not going to get stronger as a result. And actually a lot of people are doing more than this already. So if you look at the average weight of, say, a 3-year-old is around 14 kilograms, and most people that I'm talking about will quite happily lift their grandchild up without realizing how much they actually weigh, but they don't want to venture beyond 2-3 kilogram dumbbells because they think it might injure them. So again, it's very much that setting their aim too low, and they achieve their mark and feel happy they've achieved their mark, but they've left a lot on the table that they could have been doing and progressing and really building a lot more strength than they currently are, because they had this low belief of themselves to begin with. So the importance is, and that's fine to get going, is having these kind of low goals, but once you've achieved it, is to then reevaluate and think, okay, what's my next goal? Can I achieve? And continue progress. And with strength training, we do need to continually progress and keep nudging out of a comfort zone in order to be continuing to build strength. Because if we're not building strength, despite we're exercising, that exercising that you are doing might help you delay the loss in muscle strength that you would naturally get as you get older and as you age. But it won't necessarily build on the strength that you've already got, and it may still mean you're losing strength even though you're being active. So yeah, that's where this quote comes in and how I think it relates to strength training. But again, that quote again, "The greater danger for most of us lies not in setting our aims too high and falling short, but in setting our aim too low and achieving our mark." And Michelangelo. Good. So welcome back to another of these live Q&As. So if you are an older adult and you are looking to start strength training, or you've already started but you think you could be getting more from it, or you've got a few things that are holding you back, or questions about exercises or fears that you just wanted to just kind of clarify things with me, then here's your chance to ask me some questions live on this call or live on this live stream. You can use the comment or chat feature just to type your questions in as we're going through. They'll flag up to me. I can bring those up on screen, and I'll do my best to answer it if I can answer it now. If there's a few that come in, or if it's something I'm going to need to kind of go away and look at, then I will certainly answer it in a future week's time. You might be watching this as a replay, so it's not live anymore. So this is going out, it's 12:06 now on Wednesday. If you're watching this at another time, you can still use the comments feature, write your questions. I will check back in the week to see what questions have come through, and then I will answer that in next week or a future week's episode as well, or one of the live streams. As ever, it does me a huge favour if whilst you're watching this you can click the thumbs up button below and like this video, because it really does help the algorithms show this video out to more people, and that means we can help to inspire more people to get started with strength training and start to kind of feel the benefits it provides. Equally, make sure you do click subscribe, because it will just mean you're more likely to be notified next time I go and do a live stream next week. But they're always 12 o'clock on a Wednesday. The only thing will change that is if I'm ill or if my son's ill. But if it isn't at 12, I'll always let you know, and I can do a different time. And then the one other option is email. So if you've got some questions but you don't want to ask it publicly on the live stream, then feel free to email me. It's chris@nevertooldtolift.com, and I can answer, or I can bring those questions up without your name, and then I'll answer that in the next week's live stream. So I've had some questions that have come through in the following week, so I'm going to start with those, and if any come through, we'll kind of add those in at the end. So first question that I had from someone in the clinic that saw me yesterday actually was, my balance isn't what it used to be. Will strength training help my balance? And whilst she'd noticed she's feeling weaker and not as strong as she could be, the thing that really bothered her was the balance. And it wasn't necessarily that she'd had any falls or anything along those lines, but she just had tried recently to stand on one leg and not hold on to any surface with her hands. And whereas a year or two ago that she feels like that's something she should have been able to do or would have been able to do, she now suddenly shocked to find that she can't do it. And her big question was, is strength training going to help with that, or is it just balance work that she needed to work on? So there's a couple of elements of how being stronger can help with balance. But it's been shown that a loss of muscle strength tends to be associated with a loss of balance. Therefore, it can be implied that increasing your strength will help increase your balance. And there's a couple of theories and thought process behind that, and kind of two main aspects of that I wanted to look at. So the first one is, as we get weaker and we fatigue and we're not as strong as we could be, what tends to happen is our muscles tend to kind of go into this kind of guarded mode. So they work really hard to try and create this sense of stability and support. But if they're working really hard, what we then lose is that ability for them to kind of let go a little bit and then tighten a little bit and then tighten a lot and then let go, and another muscle doing the same on the other side. And if you were to stand on one leg and look at your foot, there's often these little fine adjustments that constantly happen all the time that you're kind of subconsciously doing with no control of. It's just happening to maintain your balance. And that's because the muscles are in a kind of more relaxed state, so they can work at varying levels and intensities in order to achieve that balance. But if we're fatigued and weak and our muscles have gone more into this kind of really tight guarded mode, we don't get those fine adjustments. We get these kind of big, just on or off type adjustments. So we tend to find that we do find that you can't quite maintain balance as usual. So you're more likely to get in that situation where you try and stand on one leg and you just lean and you have to put the foot down or hold on. And how building strength can help is, often we find by building strength, we tend to find those muscles tend to relax, and the way I kind of sort of imagine it, it's almost like it's got a little voice, that muscle, is that it's often tight because muscles around it aren't as strong as they can be, or sometimes because it's not itself isn't as strong as it can be. And if we're building strength in all the muscles around that joint and the joints above and below it, as they get stronger and start to provide more stability and strength, the muscle that's gone really tight, or the muscles that have gone really tight, go, oh, I finally trust that that's doing the job it should do. I can let go and relax a little bit more, and then it's got the ability to kind of give and start to get those fine movement backs. So that's one way that strength can help with that. The other part of balance, and particularly falls, that can tie in with this is the fact that if you were to catch your toe on a rug as you step from a room that's kind of hard floor to a carpeted room, or that's got a rug on it, your body momentum is still moving that forwards direction, but your foot is trailing behind where it was anticipating to be. So you need to quickly now get that foot back in front of you in time so that it can land absorb that additional speed that the momentum's taking you, and absorb that and break that fall to then carry on walking. So that ability to move, access your muscle strength quickly, to move quicker than it's normally expected to get back into that position. We call it rate of force development. So it's how quickly can you access the strength you've already got to achieve that. And that's something we can actually work on in the gym, is once you've kind of built a base level of strength, you can progress by actually starting to do those exercises quickly with intent. So you could do a squat where initially I get people to make sure they're not using momentum at any point to get through a squat. So I get them to do it very slowly. We increase what we call the time under tension to do that squat. And you do that over 10 or 15 repetitions, trying to get to the point of fatigue. And that's great because it helps build that baseline strength. But it doesn't necessarily, we've still got the ability to produce it quickly. So actually doing some exercises where rather than do it slowly, you're doing it quickly, explosive, with intent, and you're practicing doing it that way, you start to train the brain to access that strength quickly, which is more likely to carry over into being able to quickly break your fall if you trip. So again, that's another way that strengthening can help. But yeah, this patient I saw was a little bit confused about why, when her primary complaint was balance, why I got started with strength training foundational movements with a little bit of weight, with eventually we'll talk about aiming to get to fatigue. And I hadn't actually brought in any specific balance exercises as yet, is because there's kind of elements to it. Is we can get stronger, we can access that strength more quickly, and then we can also do the strength, sort of the balance work you often think of is, let's see how long I can stand on one leg for a long period of time, or for as long a period of time as I can, or if I can do that, can I do it with my eyes closed, or can I do it on an unstable surface? And most people just do that without doing any of the strength or the speed of strength work. So it's important, I think, I know we'll add that back in with her. But for me, the main starting point is let's get stronger to get the muscles to kind of be a bit more reactive, to then be able to get the best from those balance exercises, where if you're just doing them with these really solid muscles that are guarded all the time, you don't necessarily always see an improvement, which is why people get frustrated with it. Building the strength is something it's likely to help with the balance. So that's what I kind of explained to her, and it'll be interesting to see how she progresses with that. But I often see people naturally find, without doing any of the balance exercises specifically, they report feeling more balanced and able to stand on the leg for longer periods of time when they've tried it, just from doing the strengthening alone. So if you're struggling with balance, that's something that another reason you might want to start strength training. Good. So another question I had emailed in this morning is, I have osteoarthritis in my right knee. This causes pain and swelling when doing lunges when my right knee is the back knee. What can you recommend? So yeah, with a lunge, just to clarify, it's one leg you have forwards, one leg you have back with a quite wide stance, and you're generally trying to drop your back knee, tap it to the floor and come back up again, and go through a full depth with that. And when the back knee, well, when you've got the forwards leg, you tend to get a little bit more work from the glutes because they're in a position they can really fire to help lift you up, with a little bit of work from the quads and around the knee. Where the back knee, because your hips in a bit more extension, your glutes are in, your bum muscles are in a position where they can't really work very well or efficiently. So it then puts a lot more strain on the quads and the knee. So the back knee tends to favour or work the knee more, which is why this person tends to find that their back knee is more painful when it's behind and less painful when it's in front. So that strain that we're putting through the back knee sounds like a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. We want to put more stress through our joints and our muscles and our tendons in order for them to become stronger and tolerate more stresses, so that suddenly the things that are day to day suddenly aren't then an issue, because we've worked in a safe environment at pushing out our comfort zone. However, if by doing it we're causing pain, and particularly if we're causing swelling, we don't want to keep just aggravating a joint in the hope that the strength we're building around it will suddenly help it. We want to try and build strength in a way that's more comfortable for the knee. So I use the same approach for most movement patterns, but particularly for squats and for the lunges, is often there's a depth that suddenly you cross, and if you just kept it shallow, it's comfortable. And then once you hit the certain threshold of going into a deeper range of motion, which puts more stress through the knee, you tend to find that you suddenly then feel pain. So what I get people to do is work on exploring what depth they feel comfortable in, and then what depth feels painful and causes potentially some of that swelling. And then you can I use these Pilates blocks that we pile up. You can use thick books, you can use cushions, but what you can start to do is try and get something that's roughly that height. So you, rather than lowering the back knee all the way to the floor, you're just trying to lower the back knee to the blocks, and then the blocks act like a safety net too, so they stop you then suddenly dropping any further and then coming back up again. So you can just work a shallow range of motion in the same way as a squat, rather than squatting and trying to get your, maybe potentially, most people aim for a parallel, they're getting their thighs parallel with the floor when they squat. That real deep position puts a lot of strain through the knees. So what I get people to do is just go down to like a raised surface and then back up again. So you're only going through a very shallow range of motion. But what you can actually then do is load that shallow range of motion with a heavier weight. And often you tend to find that you still don't get any pain through the knee in that shallow range of motion, even when we're loading it with weight, which means we're then getting back to the point where we can get the muscles to reach muscle fatigue. And if the muscles are then reaching muscle fatigue, they're getting stronger, and stronger muscles around your knee give the knee better support. So then eventually, after a few weeks of doing that, or even a couple of months, you can then take the weight back away or reduce it down significantly, take the blocks away, or even just one block, and you can start exploring into slowly sort of deeper and deeper movements. And what you tend to find, if you can build the strength in that shallow range of motion, when you've taken the weight away, you can suddenly tolerate the deeper movements with no weight. And then you can gradually start to think about increasing the weight back up again from there. And I've worked through it with several people in the clinic, and they never thought they'd be able to squat deep again or have that ability to kind of almost like lunge down to the floor and back up again, which is kind of what most people do. If you're trying to get down to the floor without using your hands, or if you're trying to get off the floor without using your hands, you tend to naturally kind of have 1 foot back, 1 foot forward, and then you get into that lunge position to push up from. And if you're carrying things, you don't necessarily you can't use your hands, and it's a skill that's worth learning again, is that ability to get on and off the floor without using your hands, because it does make things a lot easier if you need it. So hopefully that helps. That is the main approach that I work with people, is find that shallow range of motion that your knee can currently tolerate without being painful and swelling, and swelling up. Load it heavier so you get to the point of pushing to muscles to fatigue again. Initially you might get those muscles to fatigue at 15 repetitions, and then over some time is bring it down to potentially eventually 5 repetitions, where so you're having to lift a lot heavier weight in order to get that fatigue to happen. And then just reduce all the weight right back down again, reduce the depth of the squat or the split squat or lunge that you're trying to do, and then build the weight slowly back up from there. And I think you can teach the knee to tolerate those deeper movements again. But I wouldn't necessarily keep persevering with it as at the moment, particularly if it's swelling, because it's just going to get more and more aggravated, and you'll get more and more disillusioned with the lunge, and then you'll think, oh, I'll leave this one out, I'll just work on the others. But actually this is a sign that lunges is one that you could really do with being stronger in. We just need to find a right variation of that adaptation to work on that. And if you think, and I'm going to email this part of the video back to the person watching, so if you've tried all of this and it's still not working, then do reach out to me and let me know, and I'll kind of help you through some of the variations, and I can share with everyone else if that's something you're happy with. Good. So as I said at the start, this is your chance to ask me any questions you have, so do feel free to comment. I had a comment here from Crystal, who, bring on screen, I practice balance training daily and my balance is greatly improved. So yeah, great to hear that you've worked that and had the benefits of that. For anyone else who is watching this as a replay, again, still do use the comments, write your questions in, and I'm happy to answer any questions as they come up. If anyone's watching and they're wanting to get started in strength training, but they don't really kind of know where to start, then I've got this completely free ebook that you can download. It's nevertooldtolift.com/start-here, or the link will be in the description. All it will ask for is your first name and your email, and that will get sent out to you. And that will just help you create your own 12-week strength training program that you build around your individual circumstances and ability levels. And it's a chance for you to kind of get started with it there, and just a bit of a template that you can work with. As you can see behind me, it is also available as a paperback copy if you don't like the idea of reading from an ebook. So you can search on Amazon and just search "Never Too Old to Lift," and you should see that's what the front cover looks like. So you'll see that pop up, and you can get that from Amazon. Some of you might feel like you need a little bit more support. So I've also got a course called Stronger for Life. So it's a bit more of an interactive way of going through all that content. So it will kind of go through bite-sized video chunks over several modules and several lessons to kind of help you get to the same point. So the ebook will help you get there completely free if you're someone who could be motivated to work on that. If you feel like you're going to need a bit more support, and there's an option of taking on weekly group calls with myself where I can help you through any sticking points you might have, then that's another option there. So if you go nevertooldtolift.com/course, you find more details there. Good, and then I've got one more question that came through that I've prepared for today, and then if there's any more questions that come through, we'll add those on at the end. So and this is someone from the Stronger for Life course actually, who asked me this in our group call last week, and they said, when doing deadlifts or Romanian deadlifts, which is RDLs, my grip strength fatigues before my back and legs. What can I do? So for anyone watching, a deadlift is where the bar, so commonly a barbell, is on the floor, and you lift the barbell up from the floor into standing, and then you put it back down again. So it's a form of hip hinge exercise. The Romanian deadlift's a slightly different variation from that, is where the deadlift, you're starting from the floor, lifting up to the bars at kind of hip level and going back down again. A Romanian deadlift, you actually start at the higher level, you lower down till the bar gets roughly level with your knees, so you're hinging at your hip with your straight back, and then you come back up again. So they're very similar movement patterns, but slight different variations on that. And what they working on trying to achieve is, it works a group of muscles we call the posterior chain. So it's your back, the base of your back, those muscles there, your glutes, so your bum muscles, and your hamstrings, so the back of your thighs. They're kind of working together to kind of perform that hip hinge and then lift back up again. And ideally with a deadlift or a Romanian deadlift, we're trying to fatigue those posterior chain muscles so that they develop stronger. Now, because you've got to lift the bar, and you've got to lift it generally with some heavier weights, because the muscles we're trying to target, those posterior chain ones, are all quite big muscles, so we often need a bigger weight than you do for other exercises. Sometimes people find that long before their posterior chain muscles start to fatigue, their grip actually starts to fatigue, and they feel like they're going to drop the bar, and they just can't continue, not because their legs are suffering, it's because their grip's suffering. So this person is sort of wanting to know what they can do about that. So there's a few things that you can do. The more simple ones, and I'll try and work. So I've got a roll of wrapping paper just to represent the bar. And if I'll try standing, so if I was to stand, and what happens is, as my grip goes, the bar rolls and it kind of opens up my fingers. So the bar's kind of rolling towards me, which then causes the grip to go. So what we can do, you might see a lot of people do this kind of one hand over, one hand under. So if this hand starts to roll away, it actually tightens my grip on this hand. And equally, if this one starts to roll, and as if I was going to lose my grip that way, it tightens my strength on this hand here. So they kind of working against each other. So that can sometimes help to keep the grip there. There's another grip that you might hear people call hook grip. So you can, rather than hold it like here that most people tend to do, you can actually tuck the thumb underneath and then grip over the thumb. And that tends to allow you to, because you're kind of hooking the grip into it, you tend to find that that you can lift more before the grip strength starts to go. Some people find it a bit uncomfortable on their thumb, so that's just something to watch. But that's something you could do again on both hands. There is use that grip strength, that hook grip. Sorry. And for more information on that, just if you just search hook grip into YouTube or into Google, you'll find a bit more information there. And the last thing that I introduced some people to in the clinic that they really get on with and really like are these lifting straps. So I've put them on there. Where am I over here? So you can see in that kind of first image on the left, you can have this strap that kind of goes a bit more around the wrist, and then you've got a bit of the strap that then kind of comes out from your hand there. So you can put your hand down towards a bar, and you can see he's kind of starting to wrap it around the bar where he's going to hold. And then he was holding the strap as well as the bar under his grip. So now actually he doesn't need to maintain much grip, because actually a lot of the stress and the tension comes around his wrist where the rest of the strap is. So you tend to find you can lift more weight there. So these straps are quite useful, and I haven't done it yet, but I'll add a link to where you can find these on Amazon in the description below. So if you're looking at a later date, then that should be there by then. You can also find these lifting hooks. So they're very similar to that, but sorry, hide that one. And it's the same kind of strap around the wrist, but then rather than kind of trailing that bit of strap that you then wrap round, it's a metal hook that it kind of the same kind of diameter as the bar and around your hand. So your fingers don't really have to do too much. The bar hooks into that metal hook, and then it just creates a tension on the wrist and the forearm, and then again you can then lift and get your legs to fatigue without needing to actually fatigue the finger strength as well. It's worth mentioning, if that's happening, it's worth potentially looking at, and you can find grip strength exercises on YouTube, but you can do things where you actually practice in developing your grip strength. And your grip strength will, if you just continue to persevere, some people don't do anything, they just persevere with what they're doing, and eventually their grip strength will strengthen and strengthen because the grip strength's being worked to fatigue. And then eventually it'll be strong enough that it can then sustain its grip long enough to then get the legs to fatigue. And then they kind of work and grow with each other. But in the time you're waiting for the grip strength to work, you'll then find that your posterior chain muscles aren't getting the work they need. So it's worth sometimes incorporating the lifting straps and the other strategies in. But you can do some isolated grip strength exercises. So you could do stuff where you get these sort of soft balls that you can start to squeeze in various ways to start to get a bit of grip in there. You can do things with a dumbbell where you kind of support it on a surface, and then you can work on there and let the weight roll down your fingers and then come back up. Bit difficult here to kind of demonstrate a lot of them, but if you Google grip strength exercises, there's various things out there that you can work on that will then carry over into the deadlift as well. So it's worth doing that as well. And then there are also other ways of working similar movements to the remaining deadlift and the deadlift to work the posterior chain muscles as well, that sometimes I get people to consider. So hip thrust is another one. So it's a little bit like a bridge exercise where your back is the top of your back is supported on like a bench or a box, and then you have a bar across your waist, and you can lower that down to the floor and then sort of thrust through your hips to lift up, so your body is now kind of horizontal, and then it bend at the knee and your knees are vertical. And again, if you search hip thrusters on Google or on YouTube, you'll find that, and you'll be able to visualize that a bit better. But hip thrusters might be another option. So if you are waiting for your grip strength to strengthen and you can't get access to the lifting straps or lifting hooks, then you could try, say, a different form of hip hinge exercise. So you're not neglecting those posterior chain muscles, and hip thrusters is a really nice alternative that you can use there. So that then may be an option for you. Good. So that is it for the questions that I had prepared. So I'll leave just a few more minutes for anyone who is watching live right now. If you do have any questions or any comments on what I've said, please do write those in the comments. Just as a very quick recap, you can get the free downloadable ebook to help you start your strength training journey at nevertoiltolift.com nevertoiltolift.com/start-here, and the link will be in the description below. Or you can find that book on Amazon. Just search Never Toil to Lift on Amazon. Or you might be interested in the Stronger for Life course, where you can get a bit more of an interactive way and a little bit more support from myself to help you through that process. And that's nevertoiltolift.com/course. And it looks like that's it for any questions. So anyone watching record, do comment with your questions. I will check it in the next week. The option of emailing me is completely open. If you want to ask me questions in a bit more of a private manner, then it's chris@nevertoiltolift.com, and I will try and use that question anonymously in the next week's Q&A session, and I will answer that one either that week or any previous weeks to come. But for now, I hope you have a great afternoon and a great week, and I will be back at 12 o'clock on Wednesday next week. Take care.